Hi there, welcome to Flexibility and Strength Online. So today we're going to be working on some bridges. So bridges really can be a challenging posture. So we're really going to break down all the muscles you need first to get into a bridge. So it's not just about spinal mobility, it's also about hip flexor openness, chest mobility, our pec muscle, shoulder openness, which can also be our dorsal muscle in our spine. So there's lots of things going on that enable us to get into this posture. So we're going to work through really opening and connecting with those muscles first. Then we are going to work on bridges in a variety of ways. I will give options and also try to find some supported ways. For example, elevating the legs so we can get into a more comfortable position. I think it's always beneficial that we can open, relax and be more comfortable and hold the posture longer. So finding ways in which we can do that, and also some slightly funner ways to get over into a bridge if you're someone who likes doing inversions and things. So I'm really excited to share a little bit of my journey with bridges because they're a challenge for me as well because of my shoulder openness. And I've found finding these other supported ways and a variety of ways of working on it and really targeting the muscles, all the muscles that you're using. I think you'll find you can get into positions and maybe find a more enjoyable journey. So practicing bridges or wheel pose is also a very strong emotional practice, or a very strong energetic practice, because it is a very exposed posture. We are exposing the vulnerable parts of our body, which is the whole front part of our body, but it takes a lot of strength to maintain it and to hold it. So it's a great example of it takes strength to be vulnerable. Alrighty, so let's start just connecting and warming up our whole body as we always do. So let's start in a seating position and just gently closing the eyes and taking a minute to arrive. So just checking our posture first. If you need to be sitting up on a cushion or something, that's fine. Or if you want to be sitting on your knees, no worries. But try to find a sitting position where you can really comfortably lengthen the spine. So just finding that neutral position, making sure we're not pushing our belly forward or rounding our back, and just rolling the shoulders up and back, drawing the ribs in towards the belly button a little bit, and just lifting up through the crown of the head. And just taking a few deep breaths here. So beginning to lengthen and soften the breath. And just continuing to lengthen up through the crown of the head. You can imagine inhaling up through the base of the spine, and as you inhale, imagine the oxygen traveling up your spine, and as you exhale, releasing out through the crown of your head. You can imagine this as color or light or energy, whatever works for you, but let's just take 3 breaths in your own time. Inhaling, drawing the energy up through the spine and releasing it out the crown of the head. That practice and just taking a moment to really consciously arrive, set an intention if you like, just to be present and connected during this practice. And on your next inhale, we're going to inhale, stretching the arms up. You can keep your arms closed here or eyes closed, or open them, and we're going to exhale and twist to one side. We're going to inhale back to the center, really trying to synchronize movement and breath, and twisting to the other side. Keeping the spine nice and straight and tall. So we're only twisting on the horizontal axis. And next time you're over your first side, we're going to hold it there for a couple of breaths. And on your next inhale, coming back to the center, reaching up nice and tall, exhaling and holding the twist for 2 breaths. And inhaling back to the center, we're going to switch over the cross of the legs. So whichever one you had forward, bring it to the outside now, and we're going to inhale, and we are going to start over whichever leg you have on the outside right now. We're going to start on that side. So we're going to inhale the arms up and exhale over to that side. So it's the side of my foot that's furthest away from my body. Let's go 2 on either side, going with your breath, exhaling as you fold over, stretching out the whole side body, and inhaling back to the center. And next time you're back over the first side, we're going to stay there as well. So really pushing down, grounding down through that opposite hip as well. Don't let your sit bone come up off the floor. And opening the chest. So we don't want to be folding over either. And inhaling back to the center. We're going to switch the cross to come over to the other side. So now I'm on the same side as my leg that's on the outside again. And stretching over, grounding down through that opposite hip, opening up the rib cage. And inhaling up one more time. We're going to exhale behind, fingers facing backwards, and just open the chest and pushing the shoulders down and back. And inhaling back to the center one more time. We're going to come down the middle, and we're going to do a few little spine ripples. So I'm pushing down from my belly, letting my head come down, and then curving the spine to come back up. Working on our flexing the spine and really waking up all the muscles. We're going to swap the cross one more time and now go the opposite way. So whichever direction you were going, now go the other way. So I'm going chest down and then arching the spine. As I come up, you can involve your head and neck as much as is comfortable for you. And you can go with your breath as well. And reaching up one more time. Now we're just going to go with a bit of free movement. So whatever you feel like doing, twisting, folding, opening, getting the arms involved. You can just contract and isolate the upper spine. Whatever your body feels like doing to begin this practice, but focusing on all the movement our spine can make. You can twist over to the back. Try some little hip circles to massage the lumbar spine. Start waking up the hip joints a little bit as well. And we're going to gently come to stillness and then move the movement up to our neck. So just looking from side to side. And ear to shoulder. Up and down, remembering to lengthen the back of the neck when you look up. Never compress, but keep Nice and long as you look up, and then some very gentle circles. And the other way. And coming. Out of that one, we're going to start waking up our core to begin with, to connect with our center and start to raise our body temperature a little bit more. So we are going to come down to the mat. So two options here. You can do this with straight legs or bent legs. So remember, we never want, if we have our legs straight, we never want our back to be arching off the mat. We always want to be drawing our belly button in, connecting the whole back with the mat. If you get to a point here where you start to lift off, bend your legs, and that will enable you to engage your core and protect your back. So we're going to come into a dish shape. You can either cross the arms over the chest, or you can support your neck a little bit if you want. We're just going to hold dish with the upper body, and you're either going to scissor your legs bent here, or if you can, without disengaging your core, we can scissor with straight legs. Drawing the belly button in, we want to try to not puff the abs out, but keep trying to draw them in as much as possible so that we're protecting our spine, and that's the strength we need. Come down anytime you like, but the idea is that I want you guys to start to feel the temperature rise and start to feel a little bit of a burn in your abs. Coming down and stretching out nice and long, stretching out the abs a little. So those are one of the most efficient ways to raise the body temperature. I just found that little bit, my body temperature raised a lot. So we are going to go through our little sequence warming up our joints. So starting with one leg, bringing one knee into the chest, crossing it over the body, bringing the arms into a T shape, and we're going to point and flex. And you can look over the opposite shoulder, keeping the shoulder connected. Starting to warm up our knees, hips and feet. And next time your foot is straight, bringing it straight up to point up, bending the knee, and then coming into our nice hip circles, making sure that other hip stays grounded the whole time. And the other direction. And crossing the knee over into a twist and then opening it out the other side. Don't worry if your shoulder blade comes off here, and try to touch the knee to the floor on either side. Bringing the knee into the chest one more time and really pushing down and lengthening through that base leg as well. Don't leave it forgotten. And grabbing a hold of the back of the thigh, we are going to hold the knee in close to the chest. I'm going to flex my foot and attempt to straighten my leg. If you're very, very flexible, you might straighten it. Otherwise, you probably won't. So the idea is that we don't want to let the knee lift away from the chest in order to straighten our leg. We want to keep the whole thigh where it is. And bringing that foot to the opposite knee to come into our glute stretch, keeping the sacrum connected and the spine neutral. So don't let your hips roll up. Keep pushing down. So if you want to push the tailbone into the floor. And bringing that top leg further over to stack the knees. Hugging behind the knees and drawing them into the chest. Again, pushing the tailbone down towards the floor. If you like, you can also grab the feet and draw them down and upwards. Bringing the stretch into the piriformis, the deeper pelvic muscles. This is the muscle that can, when it's tight, squeeze the sciatic nerve. So this is a great stretch for any sciatic nerve pain. And we're gonna bring the leg up. This time we're gonna grab on behind the knee, shin, thigh, wherever you want, and do a little gentle hamstring stretch. So maybe not go to your full extension at this point. You can play around with flexing or pointing, and really keeping that bottom leg engaged as well. And releasing when you toe everything on the other side. So other leg, knee into the chest, cross over the body, pointing and flexing, and looking over the opposite shoulder, keeping the opposite shoulder blade connected. And bringing the leg straight up, bending the knee and coming into our circles. So keeping both hips connected to the floor. So we also don't want to lift this hip up. We want to really isolate the movement of the femur, our leg bone, in our hip socket. And the other way. And crossing the knee over and opening out. So this does come a little bit more into our lower back as well here. And bringing the knee into the chest one more time, squeezing it nice and close, lengthening and pressing down with the opposite leg. And grabbing on behind the thigh, hugging it in nice and close, flexing the foot and attempting to straighten the leg. You can point the foot when you bring it back down. So you should feel this quite strongly in your hamstring. It is also a sciatic nerve stretch as well. And bringing that foot to the opposite knee, hugging the leg in towards the chest, pushing the tailbone or sacrum back down towards the floor. If you ever feel like you're a little bit wonky or you're not sure about your alignment in this, you can always go step by step and really make sure. So connecting the whole spine, have a feel of where your hip bones are. Bring the foot up and making sure that one hip bone doesn't come out of alignment. So you can use your hands to feel where they're at. Bring the foot, making sure the hip bones are still in the right place. Bring the knee up, again making sure your hip bones don't move out of alignment and that my sacrum doesn't lift off, and that's where you want to stay. So then squeezing it a little bit closer from there. And bringing that knee all the way over, again not adjusting the hip bones or sacrum, and either grabbing on to the knees or the feet. And if you're grabbing onto the feet, bring them down and upwards. And grabbing hold of the thigh, shin behind the knee, straighten the leg. You can have a semi-supine position with the opposite leg here if you like, makes it a little bit gentler. If you would like to bring the foot to the mat and bend the knee, otherwise stretch it out beside you. Or if you find it really difficult to grab your leg because of your mobility and you're up off the floor, I would recommend bringing that knee up so you can find a more comfortable position. And releasing that one, we're going to bring our attention to our arms. Let's just circle our wrists a little bit as well. We're going to put quite a bit of pressure on our wrists today doing our bridges and some inversions as well. So just circling one way and the other. And bringing the arms down to create a 90-degree angle with my elbow. So I've got my arm on this angle and I've got my elbow on the same line as my shoulder. And then I'm going to bring, without changing the position of my elbow, I'm going to bring one down, the other one is still up, and then I'm going to swap them over. So I'm going to alternate one then the other. So we're working on our internal and external rotation of our shoulders. And we are going to bring the legs over to one side, and I'm going to bring this arm to join the other arm. So from here I'm going to start with some circles backwards. Let's do 4 backwards and 4 forwards. And now I'm going to circle that arm up over my head. I can follow with my gaze as my arm comes all the way around to open into a twist. And then I'm going to bring that arm back over to meet the other hand. Let's do that 3 times one direction. Follow your hand with your gaze. And then 3 times the other way. So open out into the twist, connect the shoulder blade, circle the hand over the head. And then everything on the other side. So letting the knees drop over to one side, bringing the hand over to meet the other one, go this way. So palms together. First we're going to circle backwards. Really opening the shoulder, feeling the stretch in the pec muscles as well. Let's go 4 one way and 4 the other way. And now we're going to open out above our head, drawing a big circle with the hand touching the floor the whole time. Connect the opposite shoulder blade. Bring the arm back over. So follow your hand with your gaze. Let's go 3 one way. And 3 the other way. So opening up, letting that arm pull you open into this delicious twist. And circling up over the head. So my gaze is following my hand the whole time. When I open as well, I follow with my gaze. Releasing that one. Let's keep our spine one little massage before we move on from our joint warm-up. So you can circle, you can rock from side to side. Really use the floor to massage. And we're going to start working on some conditioning and strength. So first coming up into a downward dog position. So we're going to check our alignment, shoulders directly under, hands directly under the shoulders, sorry, knees directly under the hips. And if you turn over from here, turn your feet over, that will be your perfect downward dog position. Hands really flat, fingers spread, middle finger pointing directly in front. And pushing over. So we're going to do a little bit of an extra shoulder opener here too. So I'm going to point my toes. So I'm going to lift my heels, but I'm going to not let my torso move. So instead of lifting my heels and letting my torso move backwards and forwards, I'm going to keep pushing my shoulders open and pushing the chest towards my knees, and only let my hips lift, which will intensify the shoulder opener. Let's do 4 little heel lifts there. And we're going to lift up one leg, the right leg. Let's start with your dominant leg actually. Let's do 5 little lifts or pulses here. Popping that one down, lifting the other one. So starting to work on our glute and leg strength. And then we're going to try some full circles. So I'm going to go up, all the way around to the side and back. Let's try 4 of those, trying to keep the spine neutral. 1 more is 4, I'm not sure. Let's go 1 more for good luck. So trying not to let our spine sway about or compensate too much. Keeping opening the shoulders and isolating the hips. So let's go the other one. So up, around, and you may need to flex the foot to get it back under. 3. And 4. Coming down, opening out the shoulders and relaxing. Chest and head down to the mat. let's give our wrists a little bit of love here before we pop up into downward dog one more time. And let's give them a little gentle stretch out as well. So hopping up into downward dog one more time. This time we're gonna open out the leg, first keeping the hips square, holding for a second, pushing down with the opposite heel, opening the chest. I'm then gonna open the hips, bend the knee to come behind me, and I'm gonna let myself drop all the way down. So I've got this leg straight, this leg bent, and then we're gonna try to push back up, keeping that base leg straight, pushing, straightening, bringing the leg back down. Let's go the other side. Leg up, keeping the hip square first, holding that for a second. Open up the hip, bend the leg, drop as slowly and controlled as you can out the other side. And back up, straighten the leg, coming down. Let's try that one more either side. Bit more fluidly this time. And back. And the other side. And coming down. One more time. Let's go child pose again. So we're going to do some more core work now, especially preparing us to work quite intensely with our spine. So remembering when I say core work, I'm talking about our whole center. So we're talking about our abs, obliques, back muscles, glutes, the whole lot. So these are all the muscles that support our spine. So we tend to want to do abs a lot, but if we do lots of crunches and don't also work your spinal muscles, you're going to end up with an imbalance, which is going to cause back pain ultimately. So we always try to work really evenly throughout the whole center. So let's start with some really simple crunches to begin with. So bringing the legs out straight. And here I want you to really focus on drawing the abs in as you contract them. So instead of letting the abs push out as you lift, I want you to think about drawing the belly button down towards the mat and really maintaining that while you do your crunch or contraction. So again, this is a way to really support your spine and work the best way you can. Also feel free to go as slow as you like. Don't feel like you have to do them really quickly either. So let's go anywhere between 15 and 20, wherever you're at. Really focusing on drawing your abs down and inwards. I think that was about 20, I'm not sure. We're going to go with some leg movements now as well, which is also starting to work on our hip flexor. This will also work on your obliques as well. So two options here. I would recommend putting your hands below your hips and sitting on your hands, which allows, I think it supports your lower back a little bit. So two options here is to have the legs in tabletop position, bent knees, and circling all the way around. So we're going to come over to the side, down, and lifting the knees up. You might want to adjust the hands to just be under your buttocks, I think is better actually. That's the first option. If you feel like you can do this with straight legs without disengaging your core and arching your spine, please do with straight legs. So let's go 5 either direction. You can also try, particularly if you have your legs straight, if it helps to bring your arms out and you can push down. into the ground and give yourself a bit of extra support as well. And relaxing that one. Taking a second, now we're going to go some legs over our head. Let's try tuck, straight and straddle. Let's do 2 of each, so 6 in total. Again, you can either have arms behind you, arms under your hips, or most challenging is arms above the head. So we're going to go tucking the knees into the chest, rolling over to a plow, tucking and rolling back down slowly. So slow and control is the key here. Straight legs. So the slower you do it, the more you're using your core strength instead of using momentum. And lower down. So we're lowering down to a dish here as well. And straddling. And lowering down. Let's go one more each. Tuck. Straight. And straddle. Releasing that one. Let's target our obliques now. So let's go with some side V-snaps or crunch snaps. I'm going to come up onto my elbow and use your elbow as much as you need to. As much as you need to, but as little as you need to. So we really want to focus in, isolate the obliques here. And so I'm going to bring my knees into my chest and lift my chest a little bit. So I'm using this hand to support me. Then I'm going to bend the elbow and come down. So I'm bringing chest and knees together and lifting. Let's go between 10 and 15 maybe. And stretching out the side body. And the other side. So you might need to shuffle to find your the position that works best for you. So between 10 and 15. The lower you go, the more challenging it is. So you can get into a side dish position. And stretching out the side body. And coming over to do some spinal work. So we're going to go legs first. So bringing the hands onto the mat and resting the forehead onto the mat and really trying to relax your shoulders. Not engage the shoulders at all. If you can, we want to only isolate the lower back and the glutes. So resting down and really engage the glutes, squeezing the legs together. And let's do 15 lifts. Taking a breath. And now I'm going to do chest only. So really, again, squeezing the legs together, engaging the glutes to protect the lower back. Let's go 10 arms beside the ears, and we're going to lift the chest as high as we can. And coming down, so we're going to do another 5. You can either do 5 normal ones like that again, or we're going to do 5 where we lift, twist one way, twist the other way, back to center and back down. So it looks like this: lift, twist, twist, center, back. And down. Let's do a few cat-cows to compensate for that. So pushing the belly down to the mat, arching the spine, pushing the chest forward, and then pushing the belly up towards the roof. Cycle through a few of those, and then try some circles as well. So circling the whole spine. And the other way. So we're really going to start knuckling down on these muscles. We need to get into a bridge or wheel posture. So we only need a chair for this part of the practice and a wall. If you have a chair with a railing like this, even better. Could be quite useful to get into some elevated feet bridge positions if you're not comfortable doing it from an inversion. So to begin with, we're going to start opening up our hip flexors. So coming into a lunge position, so remember bringing our foot directly under the knee and pushing the hips forward as far as you can. You can adjust your foot as you need to, and we're going to stretch up. So our hip flexor also, one of our hip flexor muscles connects in our spine. So when we stretch up as well, we're really extending the muscle correctly. You might want to feel the difference. If we have our arms relaxed, you only feel it in one of the hip flexors. So stretching up. We're then going to pick up the back foot. So we're bringing this a little bit more into a quad stretch as well. But I want you to keep pushing your hip forward so you feel it in your hip flexor as well. If you use both hands, you can use one hand and rest on the knee if you like. If you use both hands, it also gives you a bit of a shoulder opener too. So we're starting to work on opening up our pec muscles a little bit here as well. And coming down, we're going to try one more. So I want you to come up a little bit and really engage your glute muscle on the side of the hip flexor you're stretching. So for me, that's my right leg right now. So engage the glutes. So we're working on active stretching here. So by stretching the opposite muscle, we help to open the muscle we're working on. So by stretching, engaging the glute, really squeezing the glute muscle, and then leaning forward, again, pushing the hips forward while keeping on squeezing. You probably won't be able to come forward as far, but you should feel it much more intensely in the front of your hip. And releasing that one, resting down again, and just have a check in, see if you feel like you're already a little bit more open in the hip flexor. And swapping legs. So first, finding our lunge position, foot straight under the knee, adjust as much as you need to so that you are pushing your hips forward as much as possible while keeping the foot under the knee, stretching up. And coming on back, picking up that back foot. So bring it into the quad, but keep pushing the hip forward as well to try to keep it a little bit in the hip flexor. So we do need a little bit of quad flexibility to hold a bridge as well. If you would like to grab on with both hands and open up the chest a little bit as well. And releasing that one, and we're going to come up a little bit higher, engage the opposite muscle, our glute muscle, and then push forward again and just feel the difference there. to do some dorsal or lat stretching. So our dorsal muscle actually inserts into the lumbar spine, crosses, covers the majority of our back and inserts in the humerus muscle, so in our arm. So it's very responsible for shoulder mobility, and it has a lot of actions. It's one of the largest muscles in the body, so sometimes we don't give it enough love. So we're going to come up onto a chair in a kneeling position. If you have some kind of broom or a stick or anything you can use, wonderful. If not, we can make do as well. So I'm going to bring the palms facing towards me. If you have something to hold on to, you would be holding with your palms facing forward. You're going to bring your elbows onto the chair, shuffle back a little bit, and we're going to push down without arching the spine too much. So we want to keep the spine kind of pretty neutral and push the chest down. So letting the head drop. If you don't have a bar, simply have the palms facing towards you and try to keep them apart as much as possible. So this is what the bar does for us. So you want to try that because your body wants to kind of cross your arms over. So you want to resist doing that. That's why if you do have a bar, that allows us to achieve that. Coming out of that one, let's do a little twist as well, which is also a great way to target our dorsal muscles. So coming into cat pose again, I'm going to inhale and open one arm up, open my chest, and then I'm going to thread that arm underneath and rest down. Two things here, you can use this hand on the mat above your head to push open as much as you can, or you can simply let the arm go up and drop behind and use gravity to open your chest a little bit more. And coming up, placing that hand back down, we're going to open the chest when we come up as well. Bringing that hand down, and then the other side, opening the chest, pointing the arm straight up, exhaling, threading it through. I personally like to place the hand with my fingers facing backwards to help push myself open further. And coming out of that one. So we're going to place our hands relatively high on the wall, hands shoulder width apart, and we're going to drop the chest down and open up the chest as much as possible. You might need to readjust, coming as far away as you need to from the wall. And I'm thinking about pushing my chest open and drawing my shoulder blades towards each other. To feel yourself open a little bit more, maybe come a little bit lower. And now I'm going to really try to isolate the shoulders more. So that was working on opening the chest. This time I'm going to imagine rolling my shoulders away and down. So I'm externally rotating my shoulders from this position. So I'm going to pull my shoulders down and roll them away from my ears, if that makes sense. So now we're almost bringing our shoulder blades apart, and then push down again. So you should feel this much stronger in your shoulders and not so much in your chest or thoracic spine. So it's almost like opposing force. So my arms are pushing down and away, and my chest is pushing forward. And coming out of that one, we're going to do some pec openers. So first we're going to bring hand to the wall, same height as my shoulder, fingers facing backwards, opening out the body to look the other way. You can continue to stretch into the neck if you keep looking as far in the opposite direction as you can. gets a bit of a nerve stretch all the way into your fingers as well. Now we're going to go on a 90-degree angle, shoulder close to the wall, elbow on the same line as my shoulder, and open out once more. So now we're targeting just the pecs and taking the stretch out of the arm a little bit. And the final one, we're also going to work on our external rotation. So bring the palm flat to the wall, fingers facing down. I have this ledge here, but just pretend I don't. And then we're going to do the same thing, opening out. If you would like to continue the stretch into the neck, look as far as you can the opposite way. And I'm going to do everything on the other side. So fingers facing backwards. So if you feel a tingly sensation in your fingers too, that's fine. That's just a nice little nerve stretch. And bring the arm on a 90-degree angle, elbow same height as the shoulder. Shoulder stays quite close to the wall when we do this one. And then rotating the shoulder externally, palm flat on the wall, fingers facing down, and open out once more. So let's also warm up with some half bridges as well. So coming down to a semi-supine position, grabbing a hold of the ankles. And we're going to roll, we're going to go through some spinal ripples here too, and then we're going to hold a half bridge for a little bit. So I'm going to roll my pelvis under first, engage my glutes, lift my hips as high as I can. Then I'm going to come down, pushing my chest down first. Rolling down through the spine and then tucking the pelvis behind and lifting up again and down by the chest. So we're going through a bit of a wave action here. Really utilizing our quad and glute strength here as well. So remember, engaging your glutes is an amazing way to protect your lower spine or protect over compressing or overextending. And next one, we're going to stay up there. So two options here. You can either interlace your fingers and bring your arms along the mat, really engaging the glute, pushing the hips up as high as you can and bringing the shoulder blades in towards each other. You can also support your lower back with your hands if you like, but keep engaging to hold yourself there instead of just resting down on your hands. If you feel strain in your upper back here, in your thoracic spine, that probably means you are compensating because your hip flexors aren't very open. So often if we have one part of our body not super open, we often compensate with the more flexible part of our body. So let's also warm up with some half bridges as well. So coming down to a semi-supine position, grabbing a hold of the ankles. And we're going to roll, we're going to go through some spinal ripples here too, and then we're going to hold a half bridge for a little bit. So I'm going to roll my pelvis under first, engage my glutes, lift my hips as high as I can. Then I'm going to come down, pushing my chest down first. Rolling down through the spine and then tucking the pelvis behind and lifting up again and down by the chest. So we're going through a bit of a wave action here. Really utilizing our quad And glute strength here as well. So remember, engaging your glutes is an amazing way to protect your lower spine or protect over compressing or overextending. And next one, we're going to stay up there. So two options here. You can either interlace your fingers and bring your arms along the mat, really engaging the glute, pushing the hips up as high as you can, and bringing the shoulder blades in towards each other. You can also support your lower back with your hands if you like, but keep engaging to hold yourself there instead of just resting down on your hands. If you feel strain in your upper back here, in your thoracic spine, that probably means you are compensating because your hip flexors aren't very open. So I'll give you two options first that anyone can practice. And then I'll give you two options that are a little bit more advanced and for people that are more comfortable being in an inverted position. So if you're not super comfortable inverting, these are some options of exercises for you to do. If you are uncomfortable coming into a handstand against a wall, you can skip these exercises and move straight on to the next two. So first one is bringing the arms up nice, quite high on the wall, and I'm going to connect my chest and attempt to connect my arm and my shoulders. Attempt to, you might not get completely pancaked against the wall, but that's fine. And then I'm going to bend my knees so that my torso slides down a little. Then I'm going to straighten my legs without letting my torso lift back up. So when I straighten my legs, my hip lifts, increasing the stretch, the arch in our spine, and I'm going to keep pushing the chest against the wall. You can look up, stretching out the neck as well, or you can keep this neck a little bit more neutral if you need. Maybe try to lower a little bit more. So the other alternate exercise, you're going to need a full water bottle. We're going to use as a bit of a weight, and we are going to grab a hold of the ends of the water bottle. I'm going to lift my arms over my head. This is quite a strong thoracic opener as well, even though it might not look like much. And I'm going to arch my spine, but I don't want to let my hips come out behind me. I don't want to push my bum out, but I want to keep my hips directly above my feet and arch my spine and push my chest forward while pulling the water bottle back behind me. You can try a few repetitions of those. They are quite intense, as I said, even though it might not look like much. So if you're choosing to do these exercises, maybe you can do three times 10 seconds. So up, pushing, arching the spine, pushing the chest forward, belly forward, and opening the shoulders. You can also look up if you like. So, and just a little reminder, please listen to your own body. Don't do anything you're not comfortable with. These are quite advanced exercises. So if you would like to stick with the 3 previous exercises we did, they are also wonderful and you're going to get a lot of benefit from those. Otherwise, if you're comfortable doing a handstand against a wall, we are going to try a shoulder and chest opener in a handstand. So we want to bring our hands not too close. I would go maybe at least a hand length away. And this also depends on your individual flexibility. So maybe start with a hand length away, and if you feel like you can go further, then the further away you are, the more extended position you're going to be in. So start around there to begin with. Really make sure we're going to put our hands shoulder width apart. Sometimes we think our shoulders are wider than they are when we do a handstand. So we're going to come shoulder width apart, kicking up to the wall, and I'm going to bend my knees first so I can bring my hips to the wall, and then I'm going to straighten my legs again and push my chest forward.
So like I said, this is quite intense. You can keep your knees bent and your feet on the wall if you like to. You can look straight forward or you can look down between your hands. And kicking down slowly with control. So you can have a little bit of a play with that one. As I said, the further away from the wall you are, the more intense it is. You can try a couple of repetitions if you like, or you could just try it for a few seconds. If you want to stay between 10 and 20 seconds, if you can, that's probably a good thing. So the next one we're going to try, we're going to place a chair against the wall, and we're going to have a bit of a play around with kicking up into a handstand position on the wall with the hands quite far away, and then we're eventually going to walk our feet down to the chair. So we need to be quite far away from this, and I will invite you, when you kick up, we want to think about not letting our weight pass over our shoulders. So as I kick up, I'm going to kick up this way, and I want to imagine keeping on pushing my chest open that direction. So the minute when I kick up, if my weight, my shoulders, pass over my hands, that's where I'm going to fall quite heavily the other side. So instead we want to keep our shoulders this side of our hands and keep opening up our shoulders, if that makes sense. I will attempt to demonstrate here. So we're going to kick up from quite relatively far away, because we think about the fact we want to get our feet down to the chair as well. So see how my shoulders never passed over my hands and I didn't fall. So this would be the first position. And just work on, you can rotate your hands a little bit to externally rotate your shoulders and open the chest. And then we can try to walk all the way down to the chair. And if you're comfortable, we're going to kick back over. So that's that elevated bridge position that we're talking about. I'm going to show you one more version of getting up into that elevated position from the floor. Because like I said, it's a really nice way to get into a more comfortable bridge that we can hold for a little bit longer than if we're doing a bridge straight on the floor. So if you need to take a little breather between exercises, please do. If you need to come into a little bit of a rock and roll or a twist, I would always recommend to release if you feel like your back muscles have compressed a little bit. You can always come into one of these nice little twisters, one of these nice little twists, or hug the knees into the chest, a bit of rock and roll from side to side. If you're still with me, we're going to try two more. So we're going to do the same elevated bridge, but we're going to jump up from the floor. For those of you that weren't comfortable kicking over as well. So I think it's really great if everyone does try this elevated position, because it really does make you feel like you can hang out in a bridge for a long time. So as I said, if you've got something with a bar here as well, it's quite useful because you can step up. So the only thing with this is it's a bit more of a challenge to push up into your bridge. If you have someone in your house that can help you, you can also get someone to stand behind you, grab on underneath, grab onto the top of your back, so grab on underneath your chest, and just help you lift yourself up a little bit. Otherwise, you can always go for a little bit of a lower, if you have some kind of stool that's a bit lower too, it's totally up to you. I would also recommend, when you put your hands down, so instead of putting your hands down with your fingers perfectly straight, you are going to rotate your fingers out to the side a little bit. So what that does, that gets me in a position already that I can externally rotate my shoulders with more ease once I'm up there. So you can start on the lower one. If you need to, you can push up onto your head first too, is another option. So then you can maybe walk your feet up. Or you can push up from the lower rail and then walk up. Really focusing on opening the chest and the shoulders. You can push away and straighten the legs a little bit. And then slowly coming on down. Giving the knees a little bit of a hug, a bit of a rock and roll. If you would like to try a bridge on the ground, also please do. And I think it's a good practice then to feel the difference between the bridge in an elevated position and the bridge on the ground. So again, make sure it's good to check in your heel position too, making sure your heels are at the same level. Again, externally rotating or pointing your hands out towards the side and bring them in nice and close. Really make sure you bring them in shoulder width. And let's just push up into a normal bridge. And then you just get to really feel as well the difference in how much more you can open and how supported it is to do with your legs elevated. Alrighty, so let's come down to have a little cool down. So like I said, doing a twist straight after a bridge I think is wonderful. So we're going to just cross one leg over the other. And then I'm going to lift up my hips and bring them slightly over to the side of the leg that's crossing over. So I've got my right leg on top, so I'm going to pick up my hips, move them a little bit over to the right, let them drop over to the other side, open up the arms, look over the opposite hand. The other side. So crossing one leg over, lifting the hips about an inch or two to that side, which helps with the alignment of our spine in the twist. And taking some breaths here. And then hugging the knees into the chest, rocking from side to side, drawing circles with our knees to massage the lumbar spine. Whatever you need to do here to compensate and release. You can rock and roll backwards and forwards. And then hugging the knees in nice and tight to the chest, keeping the whole spine connected. So again, pushing the tailbone back down towards the mat. And putting as much weight as you can on your knees. And so coming into a semi-supine position here, and I'm just going to grab a hold of my thighs with my hands and I'm going to straighten and push my thighs down. So I'm just lengthening through the spine, extending the hips a little. And coming up to sitting, we're going to cross one leg on top of the other and bring it over to stack the knees towards each other. Keeping the sit bones connected, so making sure you're not sitting on your foot. Both sit bones connected to the floor. If that's a stretch for you, you can just stay there. If not, you can lean forward.
shoulder blade stretch while we're here too, so keeping the legs in the same position. I'm going to cross, so the opposite arm to the leg that's on top. You are going to cross that over the top, wind the arms together to bring the palms touching, and then we're going to play around with if you need to pull the hands away, lift the arms up, pull the elbows down, whatever works for you to get into that space in between your shoulder blades. This is a great stretch for the trapeze muscle. And releasing that one and swapping the legs over. Stacking the knees towards each other, making sure both sit bones are connected to the floor. If that's a stretch for you there, stay there. If not, play around with leaning forward a little bit or coming all the way down to rest the chest on the knee. Coming on up, so bringing the arms wide again. So remember, opposite arm to the leg that's on top. Winds on top of the other one. And looking for that sweet spot that stretches that space between the neck, the middle of the back, and the shoulder blade. That one. And let's do this stretch one. Once again, that's really nice for releasing the lumbar spine and the pelvis. So bringing the feet into a long butterfly position and resting the forehead down to the heels. You may need to adjust. And breathing deeply into the lumbar spine, the lower back, the sacrum, the hips. Last thing we're going to do is a plow pose, so bringing the legs, feet up over the head. And then holding onto the feet, we're going to lower down, rocking backwards and forwards, massaging each vertebra as we come down. If you need to switch your grip to grab onto the back of the legs at some point, please do. And keep rocking slowly down. Hugging the knees in once more. And we can do one standing forward bend as well, which is very important to compensate after doing bridges. So here you can keep the legs straight, you can put a micro bend in the knees if you like, sway from side to side, you can shake the head yes and no, just really trying to release the whole torso. And coming on down, and we're going to finish with one little plank because it is also very good compensating after all that arching to really engage our core again. So I'm going to invite everyone to come into an elbow plank, so interlacing the fingers, elbows directly under the shoulders, and we're going to try to hold
anywhere between 30 seconds and a minute if you can. So just really engaging all those muscles again that protect our spine. So really squeezing everything, the glutes, drawing the belly button up towards the spine, squeezing the legs together. And whenever you're ready to come down, we're just going to finish the practice with a child's pose. Inhaling deeply, letting the oxygen fill all the muscles in the back. You can have the arms over the head or bring the hands behind you, resting the back of the hand on the mat. And breathing really, really deeply, bringing all the oxygen into every little muscle in your back, letting it expand with the inhale.
So I invite you to just stay in child's pose as long as is necessary. Thank you for joining in the practice, and I hope you're all well and happy and keep moving.